As I was preparing for the release of the new politically incorrect home theater sequel video that was teased during the podcast, it occurred to me that there is a component here that really deserves some special recognition. This is the Xbox 360, one of the 10 best-selling game consoles of all time and the subject of great criticism from some of its earlier design flaws. It's been the focus of renewed interest as of late due to its recently unlocked homebrew potential. But one thing that nobody has been talking about, it would seem, is its remarkable prowess in the area of video output. So, since that's what we do here on the channel, I'd like to take some time to convince you why the Xbox 360's video system makes it not only undisputably the most versatile home game system of all time, but also unquestionably the most adaptable and compatible home audiovisual device that has ever been made and probably ever will be. Without any further rambling, I present to you the humble Xbox 360.
I'll pick this up and check this out.
The Xbox 360 is a piece of machinery that's been discussed practically to death in the now 2+ decades since it was first released. Made a reality at a time when the convergence between home computers and gaming was still a full generation away from reaching full zenith, the mid-2000s truly was a wild time for the industry. And what made it so unique was the fact that we'd enter the 7th generation largely with a hodgepodge of various standard definition display device classes littering the landscape, and end with the tried and true 1080p LCD display being the gold standard. Being the first 7th generation game console to launch, and just a few short years after the wildly popular and unique from a computational perspective original Xbox, someone had to be tasked with future-proofing a machine for a future that was still very much uncertain. And whoever that was would end up being nothing short of astoundingly successful. The first thing that makes the Xbox 360 unique from a video output perspective is the sheer number of formats that it supports. While the earliest models of the system were criticized for their lack of HDMI connection, which was still in its infancy back in 2005, the Xbox 360 in its final form would go on to support not just one or two, but 6 video outputs, including composite, S-video, component, VGA, HDMI, and even NTSC RF, although the latter isn't technically native on the actual pins, and I think is really just a conversion from one of the other 480i signals done by a third-party converter. But it still counts. And the fun doesn't stop with video. You see, the Xbox 360, in addition to standard line-level stereo output, also supports digital optical audio and HDMI audio for a total of 3 sound output options, which may also be a first. Video output formats is just the beginning, however, because once someone hooks up a halfway decent HD-capable display, Xbox 360 continues to dazzle. Like the PlayStation 3 that it competed with, Xbox 360 can output all of the expected standard def and HD video resolutions from 480i to 1080p, but it goes above and beyond, firstly with its ability to scale. Unlike the PlayStation 3, which is largely incapable of doing this, the Xbox 360 requires the user only to select a single desired output resolution, which every game or application, regardless of its capabilities, will be displayed at. What this means, for example, is that gamers with a 1080i only CRT-based display, which was not uncommon at the time, could enjoy HD quality video on a game that internally ran only at 720 resolution. Look at the back of all too many PlayStation 3 titles and notice that the only HD resolution they can be played at is 720, meaning that folks with those 1080i only screens would be forced to run these games at standard def, since precious few of them could actually accept 720p for conversion. And that brings us to the Xbox 360's third and final unique trick, which is how well it supports unusual resolutions and aspect ratios. This is actually a somewhat hidden feature that folks with 1080p HDMI displays, component monitors, and standard def screens probably never knew existed, but nonetheless is there, just waiting to be discovered. Should you choose to attempt to connect your Xbox 360 to a well-endowed HDMI display or to an RGB monitor using the official VGA cable, and then proceed to pull up video output settings, what you'll see is that this machine supports well beyond the standard video output formats, including a wide variety of resolutions that would typically only be used by computer monitors, including 4:3, 16:10, and 5:4 sized resolutions like 1024 by 768, 1680 by 1050, and 1280 by 1024, respectively. Now, with that said, it isn't magic, since the dashboard and games themselves will only be drawn at 4:3 or 16:9, so there will still be black bars in the top and bottom, but this is still wonderfully helpful even on 16:10 monitors that will take a 16:9 resolution but not crop them down to the correct size automatically. Perhaps the biggest show-off of all, however, is its ability to compensate for displays with non-square pixels. If you, for example, had a 1024 by 768 widescreen HD plasma from the era, which, believe it or not, was a thing, you can still tell the Xbox 360 to output that native resolution, but squeeze the 16:9 image into the 1024 by 768 canvas, thereby ensuring that it will still optically be presented in the correct aspect ratio on your display, all with no additional fiddling required. In fact, here's a rather extreme but not uncommon example of that versatility: a 16:9 1280 by 768 plasma. Numerically, that's somewhere between a 16:9 and 16:10 resolution, but you can still tell it to vertically stretch the image slightly to fill that canvas, again achieving perfect 16:9 output despite the display's slightly non-1-to-1 pixel ratio. We already compared it to the PlayStation 3, which has a small subset of these capabilities, but still easily falls short. What about other systems? Well, the 8th generation platforms and beyond were all HDMI only and had only middling support for various resolutions, so that's kind of a bust. 6th generation machines fare a little better, with the Dreamcast supporting up to 480p resolution over RGB, the GameCube and Wii supporting up to 480p over component, and PlayStation 2 also supporting up to 480p and or widescreen on a plurality of titles, as well as 1080i HD on as many as 3 of them. It's the original Xbox, however, that comes the closest, supporting everything from 480i NTSC RF to composite to S-video to component, offering native aspect ratio support, and with a vast majority of games supporting at least 480p, many sporting widescreen capabilities, and a not insignificant number able to handle 720p or even full 1080i HD. But still, nothing can natively match the Xbox 360's sheer epic prowess when it comes to resolution, aspect ratio, and video output format flexibility, including non-gaming devices such as every generation of the Chromecast, Apple TV, Roku, or other streaming gadgets. Even a full-on computer with a competent graphics card, which easily capable of the more PC-centric video resolutions, obviously, often won't have component video output, and that's to say nothing of analog standard def formats like S-video or composite. And to my knowledge, no desktop operating environment ever has anything even resembling support for non-square pixel ratios unless you count XBMC, but that's only one single application. For that reason, the Xbox 360 stands in a league all its own, and I think reflects great credit upon whoever was responsible for engineering this. Speaking of, and this might be a long shot, but if you are the person who was part of that effort, even in a small way, please feel free to reach out through a YouTube direct message, in the comments section, or even the podcast email address of xdapodcast@outlook.com, including the word podcast somewhere in the subject line of your message, as I'd be happy to do a Q&A sequel on this. Otherwise, I'm Browningate. Thanks as always for watching, and I hope you'll join me for the next one.